welcome to the We Are Claimin'It podcast, where real women take real steps towards healthier living, meaningful purpose, and income that truly transforms their lives and their family's future. I'm your host, Tammy Guillory. If you are done waiting for the right time, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us today. This episode is really important to me because as women, we are constantly pouring out into others. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Our audience knows what I'm talking about here. A lot of times our health takes the back seat because of that. And so often we try quick fixes, we try diets, and sometimes we look for the easy way, or even worse, I've been guilty of this. I'll start over on Monday cycle and we stay stuck. So today's conversation is truly about breaking that cycle and actually understanding our bodies so that we can heal, we can have the energy that we desire, and we can feel good again. So today we're talking to my friend Amy Cimo. I'm glad that she's with me. I am super excited to interview her because I really feel like our audience needs to hear her testimony and what she's able to offer and help us with. She owns Amy Cimo Nutrition, and she supports women in building energy, confidence, and health through nourishment, and most importantly, mindset, not restriction. And I've heard her refer to herself as a non-diet coach, which I love because I think too many of us have this diet mindset. So thank you, Amy, for being with me. I am excited to spend some time with you, even though we just had lunch together, but still,
Yeah.
I'm always excited to spend time with you. And I know our audience is going to benefit. So take us back. How did you get in this space?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I always love chatting with you. So this is just fun for me. So how did I get here? Well, like a lot of people in this space, in the health and wellness space, a lot of people get into it because of their own histories. And that's my story as well. You know, I have a lifetime history of struggling with weight. And with that comes a little bit of anxiety. I had body image issues. I had a little bit of depression growing up as well. And for me, they were all really intertwined because it was always this idea of if I just lose the weight, then it'll solve everything. I do have some, diabetes runs in my family, so that was always a concern to me. I am more prone to insulin resistance, so being able to support my health was important. But like a lot of women, I just went through this diet roller coaster and up and downs and weight throughout most of my life. About 10, 11 years ago now, I was actually able to finally kind of hit the mark of 100 pounds weight loss. And that was significant, right? That's a significant milestone. And I lost a lot of that. You know, I'd gone through cycles of losing 50 pounds, gaining it back, losing it again, gaining 30 back. And at this point, when I lost the bulk of this weight, it was within a relatively short period of time. I'd say probably 8 to 12 months. And it was, again, over a decade ago. So it wasn't common to see people losing that much weight that quickly at that time. You know, now people are, dropping pounds with GLP-1s. And so when I lost that weight, I became kind of the like go to for what do I do? How did you do it? What do I need to do? What should I eat? Is this okay? And I really innately knew that everybody's different. So I would tell people, look, I can tell you what I did and why I think it works for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So that was really what started my interest in wanting to understand more of the physiology behind nutrition. I come from a creative background. I do not have a science and technical background. I worked in digital marketing. I'm a writer, so I have a very much a creative mind. So fast forward through the pandemic, like a lot of people, I lost my job with the company that I was with, and I decided to start freelancing. But that opened up a lot of time and opportunity for me. So I decided I want to pursue this. I want to study nutrition. And I started doing that. So I started studying nutrition, got a nutrition coaching certification. I did some personal training as well for a few years. And then when I started coaching as a nutrition coach, it really, I think when people hear nutrition, they automatically hear weight and weight loss. That's what their go-to is, right? That's what they think. And so it, you know, I guess when I started, the idea was I want to help people solve this problem that I also had without the ups and downs that I went through with it. But I had also gotten to a place where I felt a lot more comfortable with my body, I would say, where I didn't lose all the weight I necessarily wanted to lose, but I got to a place where I said, you know what? This is where my body is comfortable. This is where I want to be comfortable. I don't want to do this forever. I want to live my life, right? Like I don't want to focus on my weight forever. So when I started coaching other women around weight loss and, appearance and aesthetics, it really didn't sit well with me because I really just wanted to hug them and say, you don't have to lose weight in order to feel good, in order to live your best life. And so that really drove me to look further. And I started studying nutritional therapy. So I got a nutritional therapy certification, and that really digs more into the physiology again around how does nutrition really work in the body? How does our body, how do our bodies use food? How do the nutrients interact? And based on symptoms that are presenting, how can we use a food first approach to support that so you can feel better, so you can mitigate those symptoms and feel better, live a higher quality of life? And there's really a very unique individuality component to it of like not everyone is the same. And so you really need to look at all the factors, not just necessarily what's on your plate, but what are the symptoms? What is your lifestyle? What is your history? And that really drove more into the internal piece versus just focusing on the external piece, the aesthetics for me, and more about health, overall wellness, healthy aging, and just trying to live a better quality of life.
I think a lot of people are going to be curious though, because 10 years haven't kept the weight off. And I know that you're in a different, like you said, a different mindset now about your body and more about health and not necessarily, the number on the scales. So just in a really quick summary, what did you do to lose 100 pounds? Do you remember did you eliminate foods? I know you might do things differently today, but what did you do back then?
So that is actually the next part of the journey, right? Like we always say, what is your story? And like my story has just like, it keeps evolving even over the past few years that I've been doing nutrition. I will I'll tell you what it was, but caveat by saying it's not, I would not recommend it to anybody. It was a really strict diet and lots of exercise. And even that program that I did that helped me lose the bulk of that weight, a lot of people who went through the program, not everybody lost the weight. Maybe not everybody could stick to it. I don't know. But also, a lot of people gained the weight back. So there weren't many people who kept the weight off after that. I think the main reason that I was able to keep the weight off was because the exercise specifically, it was the first time it was like boot camp style, hit, but like quick movements, doing, a little bit of everything kind of mixed in, but a lot of strength training. I found that I really enjoyed it. I had never done anything like that before, and I was good at it, and I really enjoyed it. So I kept up with the exercise. And I think that's part of what helped me keep it off. The other part of that, and this is what I tell people now is, because that was the story. At first, my story was, oh, she lost 100 pounds. Then my story became, oh, she maintained that weight loss. Well, I didn't really maintain the weight loss. The way that I maintained it was I never stopped dieting. So for the next decade of my life, I went through periods of I'm continuing this restrictive diet that is not nourishing my body. And then I would have a vacation, or there would be a holiday or an event, and I would go off the rails, like binging, drinking. And then I would say, it's okay, because when I come back next week, I'm just going to get right back on this diet. So it was really just a decade of restriction and binging. And so that is the piece that, you know, fast forward the past few years, I can see where physically, internally, that restriction and that under fueling, over exercising has really done a number on my body. And so having to course correct and pivot is was really difficult. But you kind of come to a point, I came to a point where I said, I know I can't sustain this and I need to do something differently. But being able to see in the space that I am now, being able to see the assessments and understand what is going on in my body and understanding what that cycle of dieting, restricting and binging was doing to me and the impact that it's having on me now was really eye opening. And so that's why I always caveat with, yes, I maintained it, but I didn't actually maintain it. I just never stopped dieting. And that's what a lot of people do, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I was going to ask you that if there was a moment that you realized that traditional diet approach wasn't working, and it sounds like over the last couple years you have noticed that and made even more changes. And so that's
Yeah,
one of the ways you're able to help your clients as well, not to go through that cycle.
right. Absolutely.
So tell me this, because I know that we talk about like non-diet. Can you just explain maybe a little bit more in detail, like what does that mean? What does that mean for somebody, a non-diet?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, a non-diet approach means really letting go of restrictive eating patterns, letting go of these external food rules in favor of, supporting your mental and physical health through nourishment, through body neutrality, just respecting your body. So it's really this idea of letting go of a weight centric approach to health and wellness in favor of supporting your body's needs and also tapping into your own internal wisdom. Because a big piece of it is a lot of women, especially, are just so disconnected from their bodies because of dieting, because of trying to find the magic fix and constantly doing this or that, or, you know, we're always being told that the messages are always telling us you need to do it this way, you need to do it this way. And so women just don't even know anymore how they're even feeling. They don't know what's working for them. They don't know what doesn't work for them because they're either bouncing around so much or they're just so disconnected that they can't tap in to themselves to understand. So it's really about kind of letting go of those external expectations in favor of health promoting behaviors and respecting your own body's needs without feeling the need to fit into a mold, into a certain shape and size. And that's the hard part of it. It's still hard for me even because and I've been doing this work for a couple of years now. But it's hard to let go of those, messages that we've been told our entire lives.
Yeah, and it does change. It does. I mean, I can remember when I was a little girl, it was like, aerobics, do aerobics, step classes, I mean, it was all cardio and aerobics. And now it's like lift weights, which I do believe is very, very important. I mean, you even said that, lifting weights is important. But, it's funny how things change over the years, right?
Right.
Idea of what we should do changes. But what I'm hearing you say is that depending on our body, and I know you do a lot of testing. Maybe you can talk about that. What's something that you do to kind of dial in to figure out what does that person need?
Yeah, so there is, a big portion of what I do is the mindset work and the behavior health coaching, but I also bring in functional nutrition because from my experience, I know, decades of dieting is going to cause imbalances. It's going to cause nutrient depletions. And so we want to understand the symptoms that you're having and how they're presenting to understand where the body needs support. And we can use food to do that, a food first approach. So I have a full nutrition assessment questionnaire that I do with all of my clients in the beginning to get a baseline of understanding what they may be feeling externally and what their body is saying, where there maybe are some priorities that we need to work on through food and lifestyle. And then also for people who want to dig a little bit deeper, I do some functional testing. So the main test that I really love is hair tissue mineral analysis. And I bring that into my practice because most people are going to have blood work done already through their primary care or somewhere else. And hair tissue is great to have in addition to that. This is a measure of minerals at the cellular level. And so minerals are kind of like the spark plugs of the body. They're involved at the core of every function that the body does, every process. And depending on how they move throughout the body and deposit into tissues, which hair is just a readily accessible tissue, we can get some ideas of how the body is responding to different things. So minerals, they don't kind of deposit in sporadically. They deposit in patterns. So based on what we're seeing excreted through tissue, through hair, we can get an idea again of those imbalances, what areas of the body need some support. What's low, what's high, where, even looking at toxins to an extent of how what the body's exposed to, and maybe what you're excreting or unable to excrete. There's a measure of metabolic health, if the body's running really fast, if it's running really slow. But I can tell you from my practice, most of the women I deal with are just very depleted overall. And when we're so depleted of nutrients, again, that history of restricting through diets we're so depleted, it really makes it hard for the body to actually rev up and process things correctly, metabolize foods, and use it efficiently.
What are some of the minerals that you notice that women are depleted in? Could you maybe share some of that?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the first thing that we'll look at, and there's kind of a range of trace minerals that we'll look at on the test, but the first ones we'll start at are called the macro minerals. So that would be calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. So these you may also know as electrolytes,
Electrolytes,
and
yep.
these are really important. These are kind of, the main minerals that your body is using for different things. They're involved in a lot of different processes, and the way that they're balanced also impacts everything else. So all of the rest of your trace minerals. But we'll start with that. And usually what I do see, there's a couple of different patterns that I'll see for most women. And number one is they're either just depleted across the board. So levels are really low, which actually means that they're just burning through them very quickly. And so, in times of stress, magnesium is the first mineral that our body burns through, followed by sodium and potassium. A lot of people in general are very low on potassium at the cellular level, which potassium is really important to balancing out sodium. So if you feel like you're very salt sensitive, it could just be that you don't have enough potassium to balance it out. Potassium is important for muscle contractions, important for digestive health, important for fluid balance. So that's a really big one that I'll look at for a lot of people. And then another pattern that we'll see sometimes that's really common is actually high calcium, high magnesium, and very low sodium and potassium. And so this one's important because calcium is actually a very hard mineral and it can create some discomfort. It can create some physical discomfort when it's kind of lining tissues versus getting into the cells where it needs to be used, or it's supposed to be deposited into bones and teeth. That's where most of it lies. So if it's not getting into bones and teeth, it may be layering more in the tissues. And so this can actually cause some physical discomfort. So people who may be suffering from joint pain or aches. But it also creates what we call a calcium shell when it gets too high. So when it gets really high, it can actually create this numbing effect where, at the cellular level, it's actually preventing other nutrients and minerals from getting into the cells to be utilized. But it can also create this kind of emotional or mental numbing effect where we don't really feel as much, if that makes sense. We kind of have this like kind of numb sensation around like just being able to process emotions and things like that. And so I actually had a client who had really high calcium. The next time that after working on that for a while, she came to me and talked about how, what just generally what was going on in her life. And I could tell that she was having a lot more emotions than she was previously. And when we did that retest on her hair, her calcium had come down significantly. And so it was really telling to see how that impacted. So those are the two main ones we'll see. And then when calcium's really high, it pushes out magnesium. So not only are you not able to utilize the magnesium you have, it's just getting pushed out. So they all really work together in different scenarios. So they're all just really important.
I'm sitting here just thinking, because for me, I've thought about like calcium, I mean, of course, I know a lot about supplements, but I'm thinking calcium usually gets stuck maybe other people think this too, in the bloodstream, right? So you go and, you get test run blood tests though, and it says, well, you have calcium in your blood, right? And so you have to almost take like a K2D3 to get it delivered into the bones and the teeth. And so I'm thinking all of that. How do you, okay, now I'm curious. How do you lower calcium using nutrition? 'Cause that's what you were saying. I don't know where my numbers are, right? But I do take a ton of supplements. So now I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty interesting. I mean, how does the calcium get lowered?
Yeah. So when you think about it, so calcium is supposed to deposit into bones and teeth. That's where like 99%, 98% of calcium lives. If it's not, it's going to deposit into tissue. So if you go and you have, calcification in your arteries, calcium that's not being utilized properly or deposited properly. Blood is a transport system. whenever at any time you go to get blood work drawn, it's going to give you a snapshot of what's going on at the time that you go get that blood drawn. And so your body's always trying to maintain this homeostasis, this state of internal balance. So your blood's constantly fluctuating to try to move things around and get them where they need to be. And that versus the hair tissue test where we can see what's kind of been happening, what the patterns are over a 3 to 4 month period. So you asked about how to kind of lower that calcium shell. And so a lot of this, it depends on the person, but there's a lot of different reasons, right? So some of it could be diet, some of it could be stress. In general, for people who have high calcium on hair tissue, if they're not getting it into the bones and teeth properly, then maybe supplementation with vitamin K. So, I know vitamin D is popular, but you always want to take vitamin D with a K2. And for some people, maybe even vitamin A. So there's an ADK that I often will recommend to people, and that helps to kind of shuttle it in. But a lot of it's going to come down to some specific lifestyle factors, and a lot of times it just comes down to stress for a lot of people, and it's really just working on kind of foundational things like what are you eating, when are you eating, how are you eating, what does your stress look like, how are you moving your body on a daily basis. Maybe we need a little bit more, maybe we actually need a little bit less. So those are kind of a few things that we'll look at.
I think the main thing is knowing your numbers, right? Because if you don't know your numbers, then you don't know where you're at, right? And so that's what I love that you do the test so that you can know where your client is, so that you can make the proper recommendations based on the facts and the knowledge that you're going to get. So I have a question for you. What are some signs that your body's out of balance that women ignore?
Yeah, and that's a great question because, some people, you talked about information, and information is really great. Sometimes it can be really overwhelming as well. And so, kind of depending on the person, depends on how we're going to look at what's going on. But, in general, you want to be feeling good. Like, so most people will think of like, oh, do I feel like myself? Like maybe I feel off, something's wrong. Well, we want to know, how are you sleeping? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you sleeping through the night on a regular basis? There may be some nights here or there where something's off, but are you on a regular basis able to sleep through the night? Are you waking up feeling refreshed? What is your energy like throughout the day? Are you having that afternoon crash where you feel like you have to get, coffee or candy or something to kind of lift you up? Um, are you able to move in a way that feels good, right? Are you kind of just chronically in pain or aches? Headaches are very common that people just kind of, brush off. And I think the important thing is to think like there are so many different things that could be signs, digestive discomfort. And a lot of them are just kind of seen as normal, right? So, not just assuming that whatever is going on is normal, and really starting to pay attention to your energy, your mood, your focus, things like that, and sleep. Sleep is really important. A lot of people don't get enough sleep or they're not getting quality sleep, and it's just kind of accepted. But if you are not at least waking up feeling refreshed, like feeling like you can get up and go, it might be hard to actually physically get out the bed. That's me, but once I'm up, and if that is a struggle for you, then that's something that we want to look at.
So I want to bounce back a minute. So you talked about sometimes toxins can also affect us, and some people aren't able to rid their body of toxins. And then you mentioned headaches. And so I personally know that if I have a headache, that is not normal, right? I mean, I don't ever get headaches. If I get headaches, there's something going on in my body. But there are people that get headaches all the time. And is there a correlation between toxins and headaches? And look, it could be other things too, but I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so there definitely could be. I think at a foundational level though, and I actually worked with a client who kind of had chronic headaches, and this goes back to that thing of like knowing your body and your baseline. So sometimes when I say people don't even know what's going on, it's because you're just so used to it that it's become your new baseline. It's like your new normal. You forget that it's even a symptom, right? But I worked with one client who had headaches almost daily, and it was as simple for her as proper hydration. And it wasn't just drinking enough water, but it was actually getting minerals in. So that, like I talked about, sodium and potassium are big for fluid balance and regulation. And when we are highly stressed, we're very depleted of these minerals. And sometimes all it takes is adding those minerals in to allow your body to actually retain the water that you're drinking. So for her, it was that simple for most days. And for some people, it might be blood sugar dysregulation. So are you eating regular meals? Right? Or do you have a good balance of foods? Are you eating enough when you're eating? So those are kind of some simple foundational things.
So you talked about dehydration. So many people, and I see it, and I know you see it too. And so many people, like as soon as they're waking up, they're having that cup of coffee. And then maybe they're having another cup of coffee or they're going through the drive through or these Alani drinks. I've never even been drinking Alani. I used to take the Celsius ones. I'm not going to tell you I've never
I
done it.
love Celsius.
I did
I
too,
do.
but I could only drink like about this much of it. And I was like wired, you know? Caffeine is really affecting our adrenals. And then sometimes we see kids drinking caffeine. And I'm like, what is happening? Right. So talk to us a little bit about that because it does dehydrate you, right?
So, I'm going to go back to the bio individuality. Everybody's different. A caffeine doesn't necessarily have that effect on me. I don't drink a ton of. I drink maybe 1 or 2 cups a day. Every once in a while, I'll have a Celsius in the afternoon. That's like my lunchtime treat. But it, I don't find a huge impact. Like I could drink a cup of coffee at night and go to sleep. It doesn't have that much of an impact. But everybody's different, and some people. And this is a really great way to understand that not everybody needs the same thing or there's no one size fits all because some people metabolize caffeine very easily and it doesn't affect them. And some people, like you're saying, drink a little bit and you're like buzzed and jittery, right? So that's just a perfect way to think about like, no one size fits all plans.
That's
Now,
good.
kind of going back to what you said, yes, if that is something that is impacting you, and if you're not sure if it is, I would, do kind of an intake of what is your coffee, what does your caffeine intake look like throughout the day, map it out. And then if you're having caffeine, late in the afternoon, I would cut it off by midday and see how that does. First thing in the morning, and this is a very common recommendation from me. You don't have to pay me. I'll tell you what it is. Drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. So I'll tell people like if you struggle with this, put a glass of water on your nightstand, by your toothbrush, or by your coffee machine. So when you go to actually make your coffee while it's brewing, just drink a glass of water. And if you want to take it up one step, add a pinch of sea salt to it because that's going to help you retain the water. So that's the like one piece of advice I give to everyone is first thing in the morning, a glass of water with a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon if you want. That's going to support hydration. It's going to support digestion. It's going to support energy, and it's going to give you a great start to the day.
So I've been doing that about a year. And
Hmm.
so that's I'm glad you shared that because it was shared with me that before you have that cup of coffee, or for me, I might have a pre-workout and I'm going to go to the gym, right? Before you do that, wake up, have a full glass of water, and I don't even put the sea salt in there. I just turn a little handle, put it on my hand, lick it, and then I actually keep a little container, a glass container in my refrigerator of squeezed lemon juice. So then I fill up my glass, I put my lemon juice in it, and I down it. And that's like how I start my day every day. And it has made a huge difference in
Yes. Yeah.
many areas. I'm noticing for sure.
I've not had anybody do this and not tell me they got something out of it. And for everybody, it's a little bit different, but everybody gets something from it. In fact, the client that I was mentioning who had the headaches, she did this, and this is what helps her headaches go away. And she actually told her doctor, her primary care doctor, who then started doing it and started making his wife do it because they felt a difference from it. So that's just like it's simple, it's inexpensive, just an easy way to kind of gear up, get everything moving as soon as you wake up in the morning. And I think part of the caffeine problem is, it's not necessarily that um, it's affecting hydration as much as it's preventing people from drinking water. So for a lot of people, when you start with coffee, you just kind of keep drinking the coffee, right? Like you're not going to drink the coffee and then stop and drink water. So if you can at least get some in before you start the coffee, then you're starting on a better foot.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And look, like I said, I love coffee too. I will make me a good little latte sometimes at my house, and it's like so delicious.
Yeah.
So I love the taste of it, but I don't feel like I'm addicted to it. And I have tried to cut back just a little bit because I do find certain things, like even if I drink red wine, I don't get a quality of sleep. So I've
Hmm.
noticed certain things affect my quality of sleep, and caffeine is one of them. So anyway, I just figured I'd ask about that because I know
Yeah.
it's
And
kind of a hot topic right now.
yeah, and I think it's just important for people to really tap in and try to evaluate that, like try to make the connection somewhere. Don't just assume that you have to keep going by with poor quality sleep or little sleep. Like if you can start just paying attention to what did I do differently today versus last week when maybe I had a better night's sleep, then you can just start understanding how your body's at least working, and then you can make the choice. You can make the choice intentionally if I want to do this, knowing it's going to have this impact, or if I don't. And neither of them are good or bad choices. It's just an intentional decision.
Yeah, that's good. So I wear my watch and I sleep with it. A lot of people wear the rings to track. And this is the reason I know what my sleep quality is. So I can look and see, I woke up this morning, I only had 32%, you know, body battery. Or I woke up today and I had a 99% body battery. And some days I wake up like if it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like midweek because I'm working out, I'm eating healthy, all that stuff, I'm having 100% body battery. So it's just super interesting to me. Do you have any other way that people can kind of track their sleep quality? Anything that you suggest?
I mean, besides the trackers, which I just tell people to be mindful of them because sometimes a lot of data or a lot of tracking can be really stressful. So, if it's kind of causing that, like discomfort, little tension in you, then just be mindful of that. But aside from that, it's really just paying attention. Like understand, when you wake up, how do you feel? Like how would you rate your energy from the time at the time you get out of bed? How would you rate it? Mid morning, lunchtime, afternoon, and when you kind of start seeing those patterns over time, you can understand what's impacting you and what's not. It's a lot of the work that I do. It really comes down to awareness and understanding. Once we know what's going on, we can start connecting the dots, and then we're going to put a plan together that's going to help you hopefully see some changes that are positive.
Yeah. And I like what you do because here's the thing, this is lifestyle. This is something that we have to be able to make a lifestyle, and new habits take time. I'm sure when I made a decision, to start drinking water as soon as I got up in the morning, it wasn't like it didn't become a habit right away. But now it's like the first thing I do is I use the bathroom, brush my teeth, and then I go in the kitchen and I do my water, salt, and lemon. I mean, it's just,
Hmm.
it's creating those small changes is what you do with your clients that they can live with. So I would like to just kind of bounce back to, the non-diet mentality, right? And culture and kind of what you teach as far as just, listening to your body, really being aware. What do you feel a healthy relationship with food actually looks like? Because you and I had this conversation a little bit. I still will now I'm at a different house this weekend or this week, and I don't have a scale here. But if I'm at my other house, I am guilty of waking up and stepping on the scale. And I've gotten to where I don't let it affect me anymore because I know my weight can fluctuate 5 pounds a day easy. But I used to let it really affect me. And so
Hmm.
let's talk about that a little bit because I know there's other women that feel the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the first thing to keep in mind is that if that if things like that are impacting you, like that's totally normal. Like there's something wrong with you. That's what you've been taught. That's what's been ingrained into us as in society is to kind of measure our worth by the number on the scale. So it's not uncommon to feel like that's something that needs to be focused on and that's important. So oh, shoot, I forgot your original
Healthy
question now.
relationship with food.
Okay, healthy
Sorry.
relationship with food.
I know I got all over the place on you there.
I was like, I went off on a tangent now.
No,
Um,
it's me. I'm sorry.
So, a healthy relationship with food is different for everybody, honestly. I think when we when we talk about, when I think about my clients, and I mean, even myself, coming off of this diet mentality, right? Like I got to a point where I realized um, I needed to shift my thoughts around this, and I couldn't continue to diet because again, I was like, lost weight, gained some weight back, and was like, oh, I need to get this weight off now automatically, right? That's the first thought. I'm ready to get this weight off. And I was dieting and it was not working very well. And at the same time, I felt really bad. Like I physically, mentally, everything just felt really bad. And so that's when I realized I cannot continue to sustain this. I can't because even if I do lose the weight, it's going to come right back on because I cannot sustain what I'm doing to try to very slowly lose this weight. So that shift in me was I need to allow myself to eat. Number one, I need to allow myself to eat without restrictions. And this is it's really hard. It's really hard. And a lot of times, like people can't just usually automatically make that switch, right? It's very difficult because there is a lot of noise that comes with that, a lot of uh, judgment and guilt and shame, even when you do allow yourself to eat something that you feel like you shouldn't eat. So it's really hard, but it just starts with, it's the small steps of number one, how are you feeling? How can we support how you're feeling? And for a lot of people, we need to look at how often they are eating, what their meals look like, and are they actually getting enough nutrients, enough food in general to support their energy. And so we'll start with kind of like, you know, assessing a day, assessing meals, and looking at, how can we slowly kind of implement changes here. But ultimately, everybody's going to have um, a, a different picture of what a healthy relationship with food looks like for them. I think the idea overall, though, is that you can choose to eat something because it makes you feel good. You can choose to eat something because you're going to get enjoyment out of it. You can choose to eat something because it is a special circumstance, right? So it's this idea of there are no rules around it. I don't have to do this or do that um, just because I need to fit this external standard or I need to follow this rule. It's about kind of letting go of what like morality of food and what eating food says about you and leaning into how do I feel and how am I respecting my body and respecting myself. I don't know if that quite answered the question, but it's just it's complex. It's very complex.
Do you agree that the most important thing that we can do for our bodies is just go to whole food? And what I mean by that is do our best to stay away from the processed food. So whole food for me, and I guess the way that I try to live now is, you know, meat, vegetables, fruit, those types of things. And if I do eat bread, I mean, there's like a little bakery that does sourdough bread. I'll get a sourdough bread because I know it's just a couple ingredients. So would you agree that that would be a good place to start for people?
Think the best place to start for most people is what can we add in to what you're saying. Yes, what can we add in that is nutrient dense that is going to support your energy, your physiology, your mental health, all of those things. So that's usually where we start. We don't start with cutting anything out. We start by actually adding things in. So we know, and I think this is where coaching is really important because most people are aware I should probably eat some vegetables. I need to eat fruit. Now everybody knows I need protein.
Yeah.
Fiber is the new thing. Fiber is also really important. Getting whole grains and beans and lentils, things like that are really important. Like all of those things are health promoting behaviors. So yes, we want to be doing those things and we need to work them in again in small steps for it to be sustainable and actually fit what it looks like for you, what that healthy relationship with food looks like. But in general, I will say going to, from the non-diet approach, nothing's off limits, right? And I know for you, nothing's off limits, right? You're going to eat maybe some Girl Scout cookies every once in a while, or, have some chips and salsa and a margarita, like, right? It's not off limits. So, right. So we want to open that up first, and understand that no food is good or bad. But in the same breath, we know that there are certain things that are going to support health, and so it's really just about balancing all of that.
Yeah, that's good. And look, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that if I, the choice I make, okay, I really kind of asked myself, like, last night I had a glass of wine and I had, we went out to dinner. It was a special lobster steak, and I could have gotten the mashed potatoes or the vegetables, the steamed vegetables. And my husband chose mashed potatoes and I chose the steamed vegetables. And for me, it wasn't about, I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I really wanted those mashed potatoes. Because if I really wanted them, I would have gotten them. But I figured, well, my husband's going to get that. I can take one bite. But I know that if I would have gotten the mashed potatoes, because I know my body and I'm already drinking a glass of wine, which has sugar, I'm going to be craving things afterwards. And then I put myself on this down spiral. So I think as I've gotten older, I've become more aware of, if I make this choice, what's going to happen later. And yes, you are right. I mean, I love a good margarita and I love some chips and salsa. So I will absolutely do that, but I might be eating extra things later if I don't watch it. Right. So it's just I think it's what you're saying, is being aware of your body and what triggers you, right? So it's really being self-aware, and that's what you coach people on as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. And that's kind of an example of what does a healthy relationship with food look like. So
Good.
for me, it's making a choice based on what feels good for me in the moment. And sometimes I make the choice because, I know how I'm going to feel later if I eat certain things and I want to avoid that. Or it's making the choice of, you know what, this sounds really good. So for I guess a good example for me is I go to a restaurant, and the way I tend to pick food off of a menu is the first thing that stands out. And that
Mm,
could be a salad, it could be a steak, it could be a burger and fries, but it's what stands out to me because in that moment, that's what sounds good, which means I'm going to be satisfied by what I'm eating, and I'm not going to have those cravings later, right? And you also get the enjoyment. Like there's just as much nourishment in enjoying food as there is in eating the most nutrient dense plate, right? You're still going to get that nourishment. But if you're choosing something because you think you should be, or because you think that's the healthier option, then you're going to have this internal conflict of, but it's not really what I want. And now I'm not satisfied. And then there are other things that could come as a result of that. Right. So like
good.
we went to a Mexican restaurant last week, and I got some tacos, and I actually didn't know. I thought it was going to come with a bowl of soup, or a cup of soup. And he said, no, you can pick anything. And he started listing off all these sides. And I was like, oh, I have a choice. And in that moment, I thought about everything he said. And the one that stood out to me was the vegetables. I said, you know what? I actually want vegetables. Like, I don't, because I was like, oh, I could get the rice and beans because we rarely go out to eat. I never eat Mexican. Why don't I do that? But then I was like, no, I really want the vegetables. So I got the vegetables.
Yeah, that's good. It's good stuff. I mean, most people do not look at that. And look, here's the thing. If you want a burger, you don't have to eat the whole thing. I mean, I've gotten to where I mean, sometimes me and my husband will split one, but I'll take my bread off. I might eat one little piece of bread and, the meat. And so it's true. So true. It's just having that healthy relationship and feeling good about the body that God has given us. So, okay. So I want to know, and I'm sure my audience wants to know as well, how can they find you? Where can they follow you at?
Yeah, so I am most active online on Instagram and Facebook. So Amy Cimo Nutrition is my handle. And then of course you can go to amycimo.com, and all of my information is on that website, and sign up for my emails. I send usually weekly emails out, and about different things. So those are a few good ways to reach me.
Okay, great. So the way that I like to close, and I hope that you have one thing for us, because there's so many things. But if you can leave our guests with just one thing that they can do this week, a way that they can claim it when it comes to their health, what is that one thing?
Oh, you're right. There are so many things. I think, I think one kind of summary thing I can say is, you've heard you can't out exercise a bad diet. But I like to say you can't out supplement or out diet stress. So, if there's one thing that you pay attention to, it's understanding what your stress really looks like, what that mental and physical stress is, because no matter what you're doing, stress, it's an underlying factor for so many things. And you could be eating the best foods, you could be doing all of the things right. But if that stress is still sitting there, things may not improve the way you want them to. So, just really being cognizant of that, and trying to be gentle and kind with yourself.
That's good. That's good. And I remember sitting with you at lunch and saying, "I'm not stressed," but then you said, "Well, stress can be in many different forms." And then I was like, "Well, maybe I am sometimes a little stressed, maybe a little too hard on myself, or expect a little bit much of myself." So that could be stress as well. Or like women, like I said in the beginning, we're always doing for everyone else, and we're running, and we forget self care.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's good. So what I'm hearing you say is pay attention to our stress levels and maybe even give ourselves a little bit of self-care, right?
Give yourself a little grace.
There you go. There you
Mhm.
go. Well, thank you, Amy, for being with us, and lots of different little nuggets that I'm sure our audience is going to appreciate. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for spending time with me today on the We Are Claiming It podcast. If this episode spoke to you, be sure to share it, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their health, purpose, and financial freedom. And remember, if I can leave you with just one thing, just take that first step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start. I'll see you next time.